Creature Commandos Season 1 is out in full on Max, animated show set in the newly rebooted and reset DC universe from James Gunn and Peter Safran. And this is where it gets a little bit complicated. Technically, this is the first entry in the new universe. However, it does reference some events and some characters carry over from The Suicide Squad and Peacemaker, which were both James Gunn projects in the old continuity. And according to the man himself, those two will be sort of soft canon to the new one, meaning that whatever is referenced from them in the new properties remains canon, whatever is not referenced is not canon. A bit overcomplicated if you ask me, but whatever. The show is an animated series, 7 episodes around 25 minutes each. In terms of tone, this basically follows the template set by Guardians of the Galaxy and the Suicide Squad and to some extent Peacemaker. A group of fucked up, dysfunctional characters has to come together to do a mission and save the world. In this case, we follow Task Force M, a spiritual successor to Task Force X, the Suicide Squad, but consisting of creatures that do not fit the definition of human. So we have the Bride of Frankenstein, G.I. Robot, Weasel, Dr. Phosphorus and Nina Mazurski, and they're all led by Rick Flag Sr., embarking on a mission to Pokolistan, where they have to protect Princess Ilana from a supernatural threat. The show has a pretty good voice cast. Indira Varma, Sean Gunn, Alan Tudyk, Zoe Chow, David Harbour, Frank Grillo and Maria Bakalova. And apparently the intention is for the actors to later reprise their roles in live-action projects, which is pretty exciting. The animation quality is fine, nothing spectacular, but it's not ugly. There's a lot of humor, a lot of ultra-violence, wacky character moments and emotional flashbacks. Now, the plot is weak, I'm gonna be honest. It's not particularly engaging and doesn't entirely make sense. However, I would argue that that is not really an issue, because this is clearly a character-driven show rather, meant to introduce these different characters and flesh them out and probably later continue using them elsewhere. And at that, it succeeds rather well. Every episode has flashbacks focusing on one of the members of the squad explaining their backstory. And those backstories are definitely the strongest point of the show in general. And I sort of accepted this strange dynamic that the main storyline is mostly just an excuse and time filler, whereas what really matters is those little vignettes. So I enjoyed the show for what it was. I also want to mention that the soundtrack is pretty banging and contains many songs from an obscure band named Gogol Bordello, which I've never heard of before, but which has great energy and fits the show rather amazingly. So yeah, I enjoyed it. It is probably the weakest of the James Gunn superhero projects overall, but I thought it does its job, and I would probably tune in for a second season if one comes.